This is Manoj Agrawal from Banking Frontiers. I'm happy here to bring to you another fireside chat. Today, my guest is Mr. Beerud Sheth. He's the co-founder and CEO of Gupshup. Really happy to see a company with an Indian name, where most IT companies tend to have some kind of foreign name. So I think that shows that there are entrepreneurs who are looking at the mass Indian, the Bharatiya, as a customer. Welcome, Beerud. Good to have you here on FCBA 2021.
Thanks, Manoj. Thanks for having me here to do some Gupshup about Gupshup.
The banking sector in India is spreading, as you know, and it is innovating and it is transforming like never before. What is your perspective on this unprecedented transformation? What direction do you think it will take? What shape do you think it will take?
Well, I think you're right. What's going on is very unprecedented. And I think it's exciting, honestly, right? India in general has always been underbanked, right, for a long time. There were so many people who were not even in the banking system. And, now that's changing, between sort of the government itself driving some policy changes, also government disbursements happening straight to the bank account, right? In addition to that, the banking system themselves have been adopting new technology and new processes and new tools. So that's very exciting. And then on top of it, you also have the sort of fintech revolution, right? The new wave of tech companies, especially with a lot of funding, a lot of unicorns being created. So clearly the international investor base, the global investor base, is also looking at the Indian sort of ecosystem and the banking ecosystem to drive a lot of growth and innovation and so on. So that's exciting. And by the way, banking is such a foundational sort of component of the economy that if India hopes to become a $5 trillion economy, and after that maybe a $10 and $15 trillion economy, I mean, without a much more sophisticated banking sector, that's just not going to happen. So this is really the foundation for all of those goals and visions, right? But where there's a lot of opportunity, there's also a lot of challenges, right? I mean, there's sort of the two sides of the same coin. And, if you think about it, traditionally, India was very capital starved. So it's a very supply constrained ecosystem. But now as more and more of these companies come up and more funding comes in, right, suddenly there's plenty of capital, there's plenty of lenders and service providers, and they provide different kinds of financial services. Right. So suddenly, right, this what used to be a supply constrained ecosystem is now become, we've gone from scarcity to abundance, from, supply constraint. Now it gets to demand constraint, like finding good quality borrowers and things like that. Right. So suddenly that's a huge shift for businesses, where previously you just, set up shop and you say, I can lend money, and people come in, and you can take your own sweet time and define your own processes and so on. And now you sort of have to compete, right? It went from suddenly competing is a lot harder. You have to compete for customers, you have to provide good service, provide good information, good technology. Suddenly that customer engagement, right, becomes a whole new sort of driver of success, right? Previously, all you needed was the capital. Well, now that's not, everybody has that capital. Now you need to provide a delightful experience. You need to provide good services. You need to engage with the customer, and even the consumers are getting more and more tech savvy and so on. So I think it really it's so for businesses that can sort of manage that transition, that can evolve with this opportunity, they're going to do extremely well, right? Because now there's so much growth happening. But the businesses that try to continue to behave in the same old way are, I think, going to struggle.
From the banking perspective, what do you think, which kind of platform or which set of platforms makes the most sense for banks to pursue and work on so that they can get the maximum benefit? So obviously, it's not going to be possible to plug into every platform. So maybe there are one or two that you think makes the most sense.
I would think of it differently, right? So let's say if customer experience is key, right? Engaging the customer is super critical. And then to engage the customer, right? Again, because the banking system deals with money, and every customer activity that deals with money includes all the things that you mentioned, right? It certainly involves ordering and booking and shopping and education and entertainment, and all of these things are things that people pay money for. They do transactions and so on, right? So banks, they want to be a part of that, right? They want to enable, whether it's cashback rewards, whether it's discounts, whether it's special offers, whether it's sort of convenient repayment terms and interest rates and so on, right? So ultimately, that's the nature of the banking industry, which is it touches so many different things, right? So I don't think it is possible for a bank to say, look, I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to provide the money, and then the customer can do what they want. It's like, no, because your competitors, other banks, are providing a rich variety of services. So then I think the banks have to think of it differently, saying, okay, if I want to provide all these different services, what tool or what technology can I use that makes it easy to incorporate all of these things without going crazy, right? Being able to manage it in a technology way, being able to build it quickly and deliver it to customers without leveraging it. And so one possibility is to, for example, build an app, right? You can build an app, and that app could have, of course, it has all the banking services and account balances and transfers and transactions and so on. But then beyond that, maybe it has some shopping elements and some entertainment elements and loyalty and rewards and ordering and booking and so on. But the moment you try to do that, it just becomes a very, very complex app. It's very, it's very expensive to build. It's also very expensive to get users to download it. And most users don't like to download a lot of apps because they have small devices. It takes up a lot of resources and so on, right? So it's very hard to get users to download an app and to stay very engaged users on a continual basis, right? So instead, the solution that we've seen some banks using, and mostly our customers, what we've seen them doing is make very interesting and powerful use of the messaging platforms. And when I say messaging, I mean services like WhatsApp. I mean, even SMS. There's a new channel called RCS, and then even Gupshup has introduced something that we call GIP, right? GIP, which is just short for Gupshup IP messaging channel. Now, all of these are essentially different kinds of messaging channels where, quite simply, the bank sends a message to the user, and then the user can reply to that message. So it's a two-way conversation, not just, so you may be familiar with basic one-way notifications, which says your account balance is so-and-so, right? Or so-and-so amount was debited from your account. That's just a one-way notification. But the moment the user can reply to that, they're saying, oh, can you show me my transaction history? Or can you give me details about this transaction? Or, I want to transfer this amount, or I want to order something, I want to shop for something, I want to buy something. Now, suddenly, all of that can just happen through the messaging app, which the user already has. So there's no new download, there's no extra download. And it's also easy for the banks to provide all of these services in a very simple and easy way, because it's very easy to integrate these things through messaging.
So I just realized, as you were saying, that the two things I realized as a consumer myself, that if I don't know what to do, I'm stuck. Maybe if I'm using a mobile app or a website. But in a conversational interface, it's easy to continue. You can just ask, what do I do next, or how do I do something? If you go a little deeper, one of the challenges that banking sector had was they provided customers multiple channels to interact, ATMs and online and mobile and kiosk and whatnot. But every channel had a different kind of interface. Not every channel had every product. And kind of, again, that created a lot of customer confusion. So the question is, what do you think banks should do as they go forward? Should they customize channel-wise to make full advantage of the channel? Or should they try to have as uniform an approach across channels as possible Well, as a technology leader, what would be your recommendation?
The first important point I want to make is that the world has changed because of the pandemic, right? Now, obviously, the pandemic was very hard and very difficult for lots and lots of people. But on the other hand, it's also changed a lot of behaviors, right? And they've changed their behaviors for good. We are not going back to the old kind, meaning, as you know, with Zoom and virtual conferences, including this call, for example, and so on, right? We find that it's very efficient to have meetings in different parts of the world very quickly and easily. But in the banking sector, or if you look at restaurants or malls, right? Previously, people would go physically, right, to the restaurant, to the mall, to the bank branch, and so on. But now, because of the pandemic and so on, it's all become home delivery. You order food in, right? You do e-commerce and order things in. Same thing with digital payments now, cashless payments, and so on. I can sit at home and transfer money to somebody else and such, right? And even as now people are starting to get back into things, everybody wants to do touchless, right? So even in a restaurant, you can order through a digital interface, right? Even in a mall, now you can interact digitally and so on, even in a bank branch. So this whole transition from offline to online, right? From physical to digital experiences, I think people were forced to do it. And once they were forced to do it, they saw, wow, there's a lot of benefits to it, right? And it saves time. I don't have to keep physically going, wait. Who wants to wait in a queue? Who wants to run around all the time? You can, you'd rather have free time to hang out with your family and friends, right? As opposed to doing these things. So soon as they are used to this efficiency, I think some channels, are just become less important, right? I think physical locations, in particular physical branches, is just going to be less important. On the other hand, you can just provide, like I said, a digital branch right on their device, on the mobile device, right? If you can do almost everything on your phone that the consumer previously was going to the branch for, why do they, the consumer will not want to go to the branch. And then even for the bank, right? It's so much more expensive to have lots of branch locations versus building technology that delivers it. So I think firstly, it's going to become much more digital, much more tech-centric, right? And then within that, right, I guess, even ATMs have a physical location, but digital payments, right, or lending services or banking services, or now you have digital signatures, you have eKYC, right? You can do remote KYC, you can do, remote interactions. And then if you provide a virtual RM, they can get everything done. You can do cross-sell and upsell and, or document verifications and KYC. There's very little need for somebody to come in physically, right? So once it's all virtual, I think all the digital channels will become more important. And there, once it's digital, it's a lot easier, technology and digital stuff is a lot easier to deal with than physical things, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So let me come to the crux of the issue. I'm sure you have a lot of banks as customers. I'm sure they've given you a lot of feedback. I'm sure you've also understood what are the benefits they are getting by using Gupshup's solutions. So what would be those major benefits that they've got? And what would you say as your recommendations for the cooperative banks? What kind of benefits can cooperative banks expect, having learned what you have learned from others?
So firstly, we work with hundreds of cooperative banks, right? We have a lot of experience. Just to name a few, I have a list here. So Saraswat Bank, Cosmos Cooperative Bank, Janta Sahkari Bank, PJSB, Nainital Bank, and many others, right? Like I said, hundreds of cooperative banks work with us. And what we've done with them, right? I think, like I told you, the first step, and this was many years ago, the first step was just SMS, sending basic SMS notifications, right? Whether it's sending an OTP, whether it's sending, balance updates, or sending a transaction notification, and so on. But more recently now, there's also sort of two-way messaging, right? Or conversational messaging, as it's called, using which you can actually offer basically full banking services just through these messaging channels, right? And then, what we do when working with cooperative banks, right? So oftentimes, they have sometimes limited technical resources, and they, so what we do for them is, when there are very standard or repeatable or common patterns, we automate, we build the technology for them, we set it up, and once it's sort of templatized, then it can be easily be adopted and deployed by these cooperative banks, right? So we make it really easy, where they don't need to do any custom development. We've taken care of all the technology. We've pre-built it, pre-packaged it. So when I talked about the virtual RM, right, the virtual relationship manager, that's already built. And, then we just integrate it with their banking systems. And some of those integrations are already in place because we did the integration for SMS, but now there are more channels, right? So we try to sort of keep it very easy, very simple for them, minimize any technical adoption for them. And then sort of, we just make it easy for them to do all the things that we were talking about. But once they do that, right, we've seen that they can provide advanced technical services that most consumers are just sort of delighted, because they usually only think that, oh, maybe it's the new fintech companies or the large, commercial banks can provide these services. But because we have sort of pre-built it, templatized it, and we invest a lot, right? We have a team that's doing AI, artificial intelligence, and sort of natural language processing kind of thing, so it can handle sort of intelligent queries as well. It's literally like a person chatting, basically a natural language conversation in plain language, right? And then we are adding other languages, we are adding voice, we are adding a lot of these capabilities, and also integrating it, like we discussed earlier, with digital payments and UPI, integrating with shopping services, entertainment services, education services, and things like that, right? So each customer has some ability to decide what they want to switch on or off, right? So they can customize the experience. But beyond that, we try to pre-create, just templatize all of that capability. So we really, the net of it is, we make it very simple for them to bring advanced, customer experiences. Everything we talked about, the virtual RM, delightful experience, simple and easy to use, connects with all of their products, and so on, right? So they're benefiting tremendously from that, and we are very excited to be working with them for a long time.
That's great. So typically, what is the kind of minimum time required to set it up for a new customer and start going with some basic solutions?
Oh, I think it depends. So for our existing customers who are already integrated with us, it takes very little time at all, because we already have some of the banking integrations and so on. So, layering this on could be just a few days, maybe a couple of weeks or something. Now, if it is a new customer, sometimes it takes time, but the time is not on our side. It's usually because, when you integrate with the banking system, there's a lot of security and audits and verification and all that. So the bank has a certain process that they have to be careful about. Right. But we are there, we support that process. We provide them all the audit reports and things like that. We work with a lot of banks, so we have all of this ready, and it may take a little more time, maybe 3-4 weeks or a little longer, but it really depends on them. I think from our standpoint, we are ready, right? Our business is all about supporting thousands or tens of thousands of businesses, making it very, very easy for them to use all of it. So we are ready with our technology, ready with our security and our platforms and so on. We try to make it as quick and as simple. And then it just depends on the customer as to, how ready are they to do the integration also.
It's great to know all these, the new vision, the new landscape that's going to come for the banks and for their customers as well. So I think it's going to be very interesting. We thought our generation had great fun using Windows and mobile phones, but I think the next generation is going to find technology usage even more convenient and even more powerful. I really appreciate the kind of innovations people like you are bringing to make life easier, give people a more opportunities to fulfill what they would like to do. Thank you, Beerud, for this interaction. Wonderful interaction. Learned a lot. Wish you and your team all the best. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks for having me here. And thanks to everybody for listening. I hope you found some of the thoughts useful. And if you do, please feel free to reach out. We are very eager to hear any feedback, comments, or happy to work with you as well. Thank you so much.